Where was the man I married? You snitch! You ruined everything. Looking at my husband, Dan, you never guessed that he was anything other than the kindest person in the world. At our high school, he was known for heartwarming gestures and acts of compassion. But little did everyone know, the kindness he portrayed to the world was just a mask that concealed a different reality behind closed doors. In our school days, Dan had once saved a drowning girl in the lake, diving in without a second thought. The story spread like wildfire, and people could not stop talking about his heroic deed. I remember watching him receive praise and admiration, thinking I was lucky to be with someone so genuinely good-hearted. I can still vividly remember that day like it was only yesterday. I was among them, sitting with a group of friends near the water's edge. We noticed a girl struggling in the water, her frantic cries for help echoing across the area. Panic rippled through the crowd as everyone realized the severity of the situation. "Oh my God, she's drowning! Someone, please help! Help her!" Dan was there. Without hesitation, he shed his shoes and jacket and then plunged into the water. His powerful strokes cut through the surface as he swam towards the struggling girl. Dan reached the girl in a matter of seconds, his strong arms wrapping around her as he kept her afloat and then guided her back to the shore. The moment he emerged from the water, he was drenched and breathing heavily, and the entire crowd erupted into applause and cheers. Dan's reputation for helping others continued to grow. He would volunteer at charity events, assist the elderly with their groceries, and even tutor struggling students after school. There's no doubt that he had a way of making everyone feel valued and appreciated. I stared at the old yearbook spread open on my lap, a photo of my husband Dan smiling brightly from his high school days. I traced my fingers over the image, a wistful smile tugging at my lips. You were quite the hero, weren't you? As the years went by and we settled into married life, I couldn't help by noticing a shift in Dan's behaviour. The man I had fallen in love with seemed to be replaced by someone else entirely. The kindness that had once seemed so inherent had started to fade, replaced by impatience, criticism, and an unsettling tendency to belittle me. I often found myself wondering if he had simply grown tired of being nice, or if the person I had fallen in love with was never quite real to begin with. It seemed like he had the world fooled back then, including me. Now, the same strong arms that saved a girl's life ruined mine. I reached my breaking point on our anniversary. On what was meant to be a day of celebration, I eagerly approached him with a warm embrace and a cheerful greeting. But his response was way off from the affection I had anticipated. "Hey baby, happy anniversary to us. Look, I got you a cake." "What? Oh, I don't have time for this nonsense, Cara. Can't you see I'm working? Put that away from my face." Stunned by his coldness, I tried to salvage the situation. "Come on, baby. It's our special day. Don't be such a killjoy." "Fine. Don't hug me back, but at least blow out the candle." However, before the cake could even inch closer to him, his hand shoved me with an alarming force, and I stumbled, causing my balance to shatter. I hit the ground, my gasp of pain echoing in the air. My heart raced, not only from the physical impact, but also from the emotional blow. It was as if the ground beneath us had shifted, and the man who had once held me with tenderness had become a stranger, a cruel one at that. Even as I lay there, the sound of the cake smushing under my weight, Dan's response was chillingly unaffected. Filled with fear and hurt, I managed to stand up and escape to my room as fast as possible. I needed distance from the pain that had suddenly consumed our anniversary. Minutes later, I heard his footsteps approaching. A ray of hope flickered within me with the possibility of an apology or a moment of understanding. I thought to myself that maybe he realized what he did was wrong. Maybe he's coming to talk to me and apologize for what he did. But the relief was short-lived. Instead of comforting words or gestures of remorse, Dan entered the room and forcefully grabbed my wrist with a strength that sent a shock of pain through my body.
"Oh, you think you can just run away from the mess you've made?"
He dragged me back to the cake, his grip unyielding, and he pushed me towards the ruined dessert.
"Look at this mess you made. You're going to leave it like that? Do you realise the inconvenience you've caused? What if I step on it and fall? Are you trying to kill me? Clean it up this instant."
At that moment, any hope of reconciliation shattered, just like the cake on the floor. This aggressive behaviour wasn't even an isolated event. It was merely a chilling manifestation of a pattern that had woven its way into our lives. Flashbacks ran through my mind with every instance when Dan would let his temper flare out, leading to sharp objects being hurled dangerously close to me, or leaving me with cuts and bruises that went unnoticed by the world. Since then, I became an expert at hiding the evidence, covering the marks with makeup and long sleeves, and making excuses for the cuts as accidents. Where was the man I married?
What did you just say?
Where was the man I married? The one who's so kind that he even saved a drowning girl. The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air, and then Dan's response cut through the quiet like a knife.
"Jesus Christ, are you really still obsessing over that act? Fine. You want to know the truth? That girl was Janine. I had a crush on her for the longest time, but she kept ignoring me and rejecting me. So, when she was drowning, all I could think of is that I'd get to kiss her finally, since she wouldn't let me before."
His words hit me like a wave of nausea. The man who had once seemed so selfless, who had risked his life to save another, had revealed a disturbing truth. It wasn't about kindness or heroism. It was about his own desires and entitlement. You didn't save her out of kindness.
Kindness? Christ, no. That's so corny, and it's not what it's about at all. I really just wanted to kiss Janine. It wasn't my fault that I became the hero at Crestwood University. It's you females that are so gullible about my kindness that you all started to spew that story around me.
His confession was a gut punch to all the hope I had held out for him. In the face of his callousness, I knew that the person I had once loved was lost forever. As I continued cleaning the mess on the floor, I realised that the mess within our marriage was far more irreparable. As I finished cleaning the cake up, the air was still thick with the weight of Dan's revelation. But the sudden ping of a notification from Dan's phone jolted me from my thoughts. Curiosity getting the better of me, I glanced at the screen, and the message made my heart sink. Crestwood University, invitation to speak at anti-bullying campaign talk. The message announced Dan's invitation to give a talk on an anti-bullying campaign at a local school. It's like the universe is playing a sick game on me right now, highlighting the irony of my husband's reputation.
Oh, great! Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. They're inviting me to speak at Crestwood University about anti-bullying. Funny how they still think of me as the kindest from back in the day. Hey, Cara, you're good with this kind of stuff, right? I mean, you're childish after all. You might find a way to relate to the college kids.
My heart raced as his words settled in. He was asking me to create the presentation for his anti-bullying talk. But it wasn't a request, it was a command veiled in manipulation. I felt a surge of panic, an intense desire to refuse, but the memories of his anger and cruelty loomed over me. I didn't want to trigger another outburst of his. Well, I'm not sure if I'm the best person for this, Dan.
Excuse me? You think you can reject my request? That's literally the best you could do to make up for how you ruined this day for me.
I swallowed hard, the familiar dread clawing at my insides. It was a tactic he often used, playing on my insecurities, making me feel like I'm indebted for my mistakes, just to exert control over me. Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I could try.
Great. Just make sure it's impressive. I have a reputation to uphold. After all, I'm a saint.
My voice was trapped by fear and helplessness. As he walked away, a sinking feeling settled in my chest. The task he had assigned me wasn't that of a heavy burden, but it was a harsh reminder of how powerless I felt in this relationship. Still, I did it. I made his presentation for him. The day of the presentation had arrived, and there was an air of excitement around Dan's energy. Dan was practically glowing with pride as he carefully chose his outfit and rehearsed his lines in front of the mirror. He was going back to the school where he had once been hailed as a hero, ready to deliver a message about kindness and empathy. As we arrived at the school, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of apprehension and unease. The corridors were abuzz with students, college girls whispering excitedly and giving Dan admiring glances, their eyes filled with admiration for the man who had once saved a drowning girl. His reputation preceded him, and it was clear that many of them were eager to get a glimpse of him. "Oh my God, are you Dan? Can I take a selfie with you?"
Of course. Anything for my fans.
I watched as he posed for the photo, basking in the adoration of the students around him. The men in the crowd looked up to him, and it was clear that he was reveling in his role as the esteemed alumni who returned to inspire the younger generation. When it was time for his presentation, the auditorium was filled with eager faces. Dan confidently took the stage, the projector displaying the first slide of the presentation behind him. As he began to speak, his charisma and confidence were undeniable. He spoke about the importance of kindness, respect, and standing up against bullying, using his own experiences as an example.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I want to talk to you about the importance of kindness, empathy, and standing up against bullying. We all have the power to make a positive impact, and it starts with treating one another as human beings deserving of respect.
The audience was captivated, hanging on his every word. But as he clicked to the next slide, I held my breath. My heart pounded with nervous anticipation as the image I had inserted appeared on the screen. The photo depicted Dan in a moment of anger, his face contorted and his fist raised. An unhelpful image for his speech about kindness and heroism. Dan's confident demeanour faltered for just a moment before he clicked to the next slide, attempting to move past the unexpected interruption. However, the following few slides were a barrage of photos that painted a different picture of him. Bruises and wounds I got from him that shattered the illusion he had carefully crafted. The gasps and murmurs from the audience grew louder, and shock spread across their faces as they were confronted with this side of Dan that they had never known.
I'm not sure what's happening here. There seems to be some kind of mistake.
But the photos kept coming. Each one a damning piece of evidence that contradicted the image he was trying to uphold. As he continued to speak, his voice grew strained, and beads of sweat formed on his forehead. The realization that his carefully curated image was unraveling before his eyes was undeniable. The principal and school guards exchanged worried glances, and it became clear that they needed to intervene. Just as Dan reached the final slide, the silence in the room was deafening. The principal stepped forward, a stern expression on his face.
Mr. Dan, I'm afraid we must ask you to step down from the stage.
Wait, you don't understand. This isn't what I planned. The boos from the audience drowned out his protests as the principal and the guards approached him, guiding him off the stage. The audience's disappointment and anger were palpable, and the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. As Dan was led away, he shot me a glare filled with fury and resentment. His eyes seemed to bore into me, blaming me for the unravelling of his facade. In his anger, he attempted to lunge at me, but the school guards swiftly intervened, holding him back.
You snitched! You ruined everything!
I watched as he was escorted out of the auditorium, his voice fading into the distance. The truth had been exposed, and the consequences of his actions were finally catching up with him. The audience had seen through the facade, and Dan's fall from grace was both swift and painful. In the aftermath of the disastrous presentation, the news of Dan's true nature spread like wildfire. The image of him as a kind-hearted alumni was shattered, replaced by the reality of his abusive behaviour. The school, once proud of his achievements, now distanced themselves from him, denouncing his actions and the hypocrisy of his campaign against bullying. Perhaps Dan should have been on the receiving end of these anti-bullying seminars instead of teaching them, so he can learn a thing or two. Don't worry, Dan. I'll sign you up for one of them next time. What do you think of the story? Should Cara have inserted those photos in Dan's presentation? And if you were in Cara's shoes, what else would you have inserted in Dan's presentation? Share it with us in the comment section below. And remember, always walk it like you talk it.